Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. Want to say hello to everybody in the chat and watching this show. It is a Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Our days are pushed by one day, but it feels like our schedule is way off. But we have a very exciting show as we discuss, can the Bucs pull off the primetime upset? And we are lucky enough to be with a Eagles writer and reporter, a national writer as well from CBS Sports. It is Jeff Kerr. Jeff, thank you so much for joining the show today. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. Right now, it's sunny outside of Philly. It's going to be rainy this weekend, but I'm jealous. I kind of wish I could be in Tampa where the weather seems like it's awesome all the time.
It is. It's always very warm. We're still at the point right now, even in September, where like you step outside for 5 minutes and you're just sweating like profusely and stuff like that. And if you have to dress up, like if you're doing TV and things like that, I'm hitting like the towels right away as soon as I possibly can. But definitely not going to complain about that for sure. Before we get into Bucs versus Eagles and everything like that, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on your social media and a little bit about your background with writing at CBS and anything else that you do?
Okay, so you guys can find me, I guess, on X. I still call it Twitter.
Yeah, so do I.
At Jeff Kerr CBS, Instagram, Jeff Kerr CBS, easy to spell, Kerr. Just think Steve Kerr, and you got it. So, yeah, I mean, you can find me there. I'll be writing a preview for Eagles Bucs that will be coming out on Monday, but I've been at CBS now for 8 years. I've been a national NFL writer for them. This is my 5th year, but I've always been in Philly. I've always covered the Eagles. I'm a huge Phillies fan. I'm a huge Sixers fan. I grew up an Eagles fan. Obviously, the Bucs gave me the worst memory of my life, and they're honoring Rondé Barber. But that's all right. I always liked that team. I always liked Rondé Barber, so never had an issue with it. But yeah, as a child, that really hurt. But overall, though, like I said, I have a great affinity for the National Football League. We were talking before the show. Love Chris Godwin. Love Mike Evans. A lot of players on this Bucs team. I root for Todd Bowles. So I actually think we're going to have a really good game on Monday night.
I do as well. I mean, if you look at it, we'll get into a lot more of the specific position matchups and breakdowns and things of that nature. But if you look at the talent of both teams, clearly the Eagles are a little more superior in that department. But I don't think it's like crazy far off. You know, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are great. A.J. Brown, Lavonte Smith obviously are an exceptional group as well. The quarterback competition obviously sways towards the Eagles, and same with the defensive line. But I don't think the Bucs are that crazy far off. And it's crazy that throughout the whole schedule this week for the NFL, this is the only 2-0 versus 2-0 game this week.
Yeah, ABC got lucky with this one that this is a primetime game. And so I remember when the schedule came out, I'm like, oh, the Bucs, oh, who knows what they're going to be at that time. Because, the Minnesota game, obviously, you weren't sure what was going to happen. I thought the Bucs played well that game. That was the one game I specifically watched at Tampa Bay. I didn't really get to see much of the Chicago game, but I know how it ended up for Chicago because the Bucs made them a complete mess this week. But still, though, I mean, 2-0 versus 2-0, you can't ask for anything better than that. And, it's a huge night for the Bucs. Obviously with Rondé Barber getting his Pro Football Hall of Fame ring, and they're honoring him at halftime. It should be an awesome crowd.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be so much fun. As you kind of mentioned too earlier, just the rivalry of the Bucs and Eagles from back in the day. We actually had Rondé Barber on right before he went into the Hall of Fame enshrinement, and we're asking him a bunch of questions, and I was like, who was the quarterback you were always like most eager to get an interception off of? And I thought he was going to say like Peyton Manning or something like that. And he goes, Donovan McNabb. Me and him have 3 touchdowns together. So I was like, oh, all right, that's a pretty good dig right there. But let's look a little bit at this upcoming matchup. You might be frozen. I'm not 100% sure. Can you hear me?
Am I frozen? Yeah, I can hear you fine on my.
Okay, cool. Well, as long as you can hear me. Let's look a little bit at this matchup. Or first, just an overview of the Eagles. They are 2-0. And when you're still undefeated after going to the Super Bowl, you by no means can call it a Super Bowl hangover or Super Bowl appearance hangover in this case. But things clearly have not been perfect for the Eagles. I think the defense kind of rode them that first game, beating New England. And the Thursday night game was pretty wild. Just what's your overall assessment on how the Eagles are looking early on in this season?
I mean, they're 2-0. They played 2 games in 5 days to start the year. I knew they were going to have problems with New England because of New England's defense. And New England's defense is much better than the statistics show. If you haven't watched a Patriots game, you probably know that. But for me, it's more of their offense just hasn't been clicking at all times. Like, they used the run game to win on Thursday night. DeAndre Swift had 175 rushing yards. They ran for 259 because Brian Flores just decided, I'm going to drop 8 back in coverage and force the Eagles to run the ball. Okay, well, the Eagles can do that because of their offensive line. So, but everybody keeps talking about, the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown thing, which really is a whole bucket of nothing. Jalen Hurts has been struggling to start the year. Definitely throwing the ball deep, even though he does have 2 deep touchdowns already. It's interesting. Like, they're 2-0, but we find every way to nitpick a team that went to the Super Bowl last year.
Sure.
I mean, is Tampa like that right now? They're 2-0.
I think people are just more surprised than anything else. Now, us at Pewter Report, we've been saying for the longest time, like, the over-under for wins for the Bucs was 6.5. And we kept saying, take the over, because this team is just, it's too talented to be that bad. Obviously, a lot of it's predicated off of the quarterback and what Baker Mayfield could do, but you still have a lot of pieces from that 2020 Super Bowl winning team. Whether it's most of the guys on the defensive line. Sure, there's going to be changes year in and year out, and Kalijah Cansey was their first-round pick, and Logan Hall's in there. But you still have Lavonte David and Devin White at linebacker. Antoine Winfield Jr., in my opinion, is one of the best safeties in the league. So you still have that core nucleus. And same on offense with, Tristan Wirfs still moving to left tackle, but still on the offensive line. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You really can't go wrong in that situation. So I think it was just more optimism that, hey, they're proving the national media wrong, or those who predicted the Bucs to really have their downfall. I think that's kind of been more of the optimism than pointing out, hey, you only beat the Bears by 10, and that was off of a pick 6, and the Bears are a complete dumpster fire. So, yeah, it is true. Like, depending on what lens you look at it, can make all of the biggest difference. We'll get back to Jalen Hurts in just a minute. But one thing I was curious about is, there's some change for the Eagles, of course, most notably at the coordinating positions, because their offensive and defensive coordinators ended up getting head coaching jobs. So have you seen a difference? And granted, it's early on, 2 games into the season. Have you seen a difference in the overall, outlook of how the offense and the defense is being run, or does it kind of look similar?
It's kind of similar on the defensive end. I mean, Sean Desai is essentially, Vic Fangio, Jonathan Gannon, whoever you want to go by there. He runs that sort of defense, which is what the Eagles wanted. And I can tell you the Eagles wanted Vic Fangio to be their defensive coordinator. But, as you know, the whole Jonathan Gannon saying, I'm going to come back, and then all of a sudden the Cardinals call him later, and Vic Fangio already took the job of the Dolphins. So, I mean, it kind of sucks for the Eagles. But, again, it's not like Sean Desai's a bad coordinator. He's a very aggressive coordinator, I'll say that. But overall, I think the Eagles are a lot deeper on the defensive line than they were last year. And they were pretty deep last year, if you want to be honest. Really, statistically, the defense isn't as good, but they've also had a lot of injuries in the secondary. Off-ball linebacker, they're having injuries. They're a pretty beat-up football team right now. And I think Tampa Bay is getting them at a good time. Now, offensively, I still say the 11-day layoff is really going to help them. Just kind of, get the kinks out, if you will, with this offense. It's the flow just hasn't been there like it was last year. And
right,
I think the Eagles can run the ball well, but A.J. Brown's having a slow start. I think he'll be a little excited to go up against Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis on Monday night. But Devonta Smith had a big game already. Dallas Goedert's not having a lot of I see you're showing the pass interference penalty there. That wasn't called, but I digress. But overall, something just feels off. And Jason Kelce said it, not that it felt off, but he said, they're kind of mad as Hornets, as the way they put it. They don't feel they've been playing well, but yet they're 2-0 and they'll take it. And I think there's a lot of things to correct with this football team, but overall, I think playing a team like Tampa is going to be good for them. I like how they're playing good defense this early in the year.
Yeah, and I think people kind of forget, like, this isn't college football. There's no style points. A win is a win, no matter how you look at it. So for the offense with Jalen Hurts specifically, what have you liked from Jalen early on? What has been a little bit precautious for you? Because I thought it was interesting. He didn't throw for a ton of yards in the game against the Vikings, but his completion percentage was 78%, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really tough to hate on not showing up one area where you're still completing the ball at an extremely high rate.
Yeah, as someone who's lived through Don McNabb, Michael Vick, especially the Michael Vick experience,
Yeah.
I think when you don't turn the football over, it's a good day. I don't care who you are. And that's why I've been giving Baker Mayfield a lot of credit. I mean, how many turnovers does he have this season?
None.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Why do
And
you
he's
think they're
recovered
2-0?
a fumble.
Yeah, exactly.
From his teammate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's doing his job, right? And Jalen, he threw a bad pick against the Vikings. Tried to force one on third down. He was trying to find AJ Brown, and Brown did look open from the press box to you, but Jalen just waited too late. That's ultimately been Jalen's problem. It's just taken him a little bit longer to kind of make a decision. It's not a bad thing, but I think it's like they're taking away his running lane. So he's like, okay, I got to get rid of the ball quick, but then he decides he doesn't want to get rid of the ball quick. It's very interesting to see what Jalen Hurts tries to do. But if they simplify some things for him, I think it's going to be fine. Like, for example, he's 11 of 18 against the blitz this year. And I think he has like 120 passer rating or something like that. When they blitz him, he seems to know what to do. Okay, I'm going over the top because someone's going to be open. And he knows when to get rid of the football. But he's also held on to the football and taken sacks that he probably shouldn't be taking because he can't take off. And I think that's what they're doing. They're just kind of taking away that running lane for him. He's not able to run the balls efficiently. It's just when you put 8 back and then when you're blitzing, like mix it up like Ryan Flores and Bill Belichick has done, it does confuse quarterbacks. I don't care who you are. And right now I think that's something Jalen has to learn. Jalen has to pick up. But overall, I think he's been fine. He just hasn't been MVP Jalen.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like he had such a great season last year. It's extremely difficult to play at that same level again. So if there's any little bit of drop off, it's going to be like, oh my goodness, he's not that. This isn't the Jalen Hurts that we know. But I was curious about that because I was asked as well because obviously the Bucs played the Bears and Justin Fields is a very mobile quarterback, and I was asked about what's the difference between is it going to be the same for the Bucs going up against Justin Fields last week and now Jalen Hurts this week? And I said, not exactly, because yes, they're both mobile, but I think Hurts is much smarter about when to take off, when to run. And I also just think he's a better passer. So from a passing standpoint, has he done okay? When he has to stay in the pocket, or is that kind of the reason why the Eagles are off to a little bit of a slower start than expected?
Yeah. I'm going to have to send you those numbers about Jalen Hurts in the pocket because in the pocket in the first game, I didn't look at the second game, but in the first game, Jalen was 18 of 23 when he was in the pocket, and he had a 100 passer rating. Second game, it's probably lower because he threw a pick and he was in the pocket.
Yeah.
So, but overall, again, it's really weird to describe it because he's been fine. Outside the pocket, he hasn't been how he usually is. But again, they haven't really rolled him outside the pocket that much because they're kind of taking that lane away from him, aka the running lane, which has been a big part of his game. But it's just so hard to describe when you're watching it on film because him and Justin Hurts definitely aren't the same player. Jalen's a much more polished passer. He actually works on his craft. If he was playing as bad as Justin Fields is right now, he definitely wouldn't be blaming Brian Johnson for it. That's for sure.
Right.
But by the way, I don't know what you guys did to Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears this week because I saw that pick six. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't they just throw that screen pass 2 plays ago? And the Bucs defense was able to read it. It just didn't. I don't know what is going on in Chicago right now. I know we're
Jeff. It was incredible because not only did they run it the play before when there was a penalty on the Bears, they ran it the play prior when there was an offsides penalty on Shaq Barrett of all people. Shaq, obviously, a big part of his game is getting that quick jump, so he's been accustomed to occasionally they'll get him for getting a quick start on the offside. So it went. They tried to run the screenplay, offsides on Shaq Barrett. Then they tried to run it again, and there was I believe it was a holding penalty on the Bears, and they came back and ran the same exact play again. And it's so funny because some people get mad. Obviously, Todd Bowles is extremely creative as a defensive play caller, and he'll do things. I mean, in the past, we've seen Vita Vea drop back in coverage on one play or line up as a linebacker, but he likes to also drop his outside linebackers to a degree as well. And one of the first things we noticed in training camp this season, obviously Shaq Barrett had the worst possible thing imaginable and had a terrible offseason. And then on top of that, he was also coming back from an Achilles injury. So from that standpoint, we want to see, like, how is Shaq moving? And the first time we saw him practicing, it was outside linebacker coverage, and he was sprinting, he was twisting, turning, all this different stuff. So it was great to see him moving well. And then anyway, the reason why I say this is you fast forward to the game, and it's like, that's why the outside linebackers drop back in coverage occasionally, so Shaq can make that play. Now, granted, that was just more instinctual than anything else, than just Shaq Barrett being a great player. But yeah, the Bears, I mean, their defensive coordinator's leaving. Justin Fields is calling out the coach, but it's also taken out of context at the same time. It's just absolutely wild. But I want to stick with the Bucs defensive line and that pass rush going against the Eagles offensive line. What have you seen from the Eagles O-line? And just correct me if I'm wrong. I really think this game is going to come down to the trenches. And if the Bucs want to win, that man right there, Vita Vea, has to be an absolute menace on the interior offensive line or defensive line attacking the Eagles' interior offensive line. Because if there's any small advantage I think that the Bucs would have, it's Vita Vea against that interior group.
If, as someone who covers this league, Vita Vea does not get enough love for the position he does. Like, I feel like you hear about him in Tampa and the NFC South, and maybe that's it. Like, if you would ask a general NFL fan what position Vita Vea plays or what does he do, they can't tell you. And to me, he's arguably the best nose tackle in football when he plays nose. I mean, I know they drop him in so many positions, and Todd Bowles has been very creative with him over the years. But I think Vita Vea versus Landon Dickerson could be just 700 pounds of blunt force trauma just coming at you, and I'm all for it. And if I'm Todd Bowles, I'm keeping him away from Landon Dickerson. I'm testing Cam Jurgens. I'm testing Jason Kelce. And we all know Jason Kelce can run block, so that's going to be a huge matchup as well. But, yeah, I'm definitely trying to get him to the right side of that offensive line. Or I guess it would be his left, our right, if we're going by offense. But, I mean, the Eagles' offensive line is as good as they come. In my opinion, it's the best offensive line in football. Just, you got Pro Bowlers across the board. Obviously, Lane Johnson's healthy. Jason Kelce is healthy. Jason Kelce played last year with a grade 2 high ankle sprain. Didn't allow pressure last year. So, you tell me. Oh, by the way, he's 34. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a fun matchup for sure. I expect the blitzes to be dialed up, which I wouldn't recommend just because Jalen Hurts is good against the blitz. But, look, the Bucs got to stop the run. That's the number one thing they got to do. And Vita Vea can do that. They got guys, you mentioned Kancey earlier. I think he's a guy that can do that. I think Tampa Bay has the personnel to stop the Eagles. But can the Eagles beat themselves here? Because they have so many running backs. Like, we saw what DeAndre Swift did in the Thursday night game. He only got 2 touches in week 1. Kenny Gainwell was the first running back, and he's been the first running back the whole training camp. He's the guy they trust him. Are they going to go back to him? Are they going to make it DeAndre Swift? Boston Scott's healthy again. He's going to get in the mix. Rashad Penny barely plays. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, if the Eagles kind of overplay their hand.
Jeff, I saw it firsthand because I had DeAndre Swift in one of my fantasy teams, and I started him week 1. And obviously no production, only, as you said, 2 or 3 touches. I had A.J. Dillon as well. So when Aaron Jones didn't play, I was like, okay, well, I'll start A.J. Dillon this week and not play DeAndre Swift. And then Swift goes off on Thursday night against the Vikings. Is it just going to be whoever has the hot hand that week?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Nick Sirianni said. He's going to go with the hot hand. And right now, DeAndre Swift is it. If I would have been giving you fantasy advice, I would have said don't play Swift week 1, and then the Gainwell out, I would have said play week 2. And, count the chips where they may. I would say play DeAndre Swift Monday night because I think you're going to give him the ball, and I think you're going to see more of a mix between him and Gainwell Monday night. I think they're going to be the 2. I have no idea what's going to happen with Rashad Penny. I love the signing. Rashad Penny is one of my favorite players to watch in this league. He just doesn't have the same, I guess, get-go. But when he gets to the second level, he's still Rashad Penny. It's maybe the Eagles see something I don't. There's a lot more smart football minds in that room than me. But to me, it would be Penny Swift or Swift Penny, and those are 2 you go with. But I think another thing we got to watch out for this game too: can Jalen Hurts beat that Bucs secondary and their all-ball linebackers, because this is a Tampa team that they're definitely going to be carried by their defense this year. This is why I gave them an opportunity to win 10 games and to win the NFC South, because of their defense. That was my ceiling for them. So I'm looking at it as, okay, if the Eagles passing game can just get going, I think they score 27-30 off this defense. If not, it's going to be a close game. And I'm thinking, 2017, 24-20, and you could pick your winner.
Yeah, that's what concerns me about the Bucs defense a little bit. I mean, they've been fantastic this season. 3 turnovers the first game, 2 turnovers, and closing the game out with the pick 6 by Shaq Barrett in that second game. We know Todd Bowles can get blitz happy, but he's very creative with it. But when they do that, sometimes they get so worried about allowing the deep ball down the field that they just let up everything underneath them. And sure, that can work with some teams, but with the Eagles, I feel like you can't get away with that because they'll just get picked apart 8 yards, 10 yards, and so on and so forth. And obviously a big factor in this game will be whether or not Carlton Davis plays. He did not play last week, but Carlton's one of those guys that relishes in the big matchups, like whether he's facing, like he had a great game against Jamar Chase last season against the Bengals, and he loves those type of matchups. Everyone remembers the hatred, the blood feud he has with Michael Thomas of the Saints, which I'm excited for that to be reignited next week when the Bucs play against the Saints. So we'll see if Carlton Davis can come back in that one. I know Dave Canales likes Rashad Penny, given their history in Seattle together. We actually call Dave Canales the human Celsius because he's so energetic and so upbeat. So this is a perfect time before we transition to the Bucs offense against the Eagles defense to talk about Celsius energy drinks, which of course is the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Their newest flavor is the Cosmic Vibe, but there are so many great flavors to choose from. I love the strawberry lemonade. The Arctic Vibe is my personal favorite, so you can't go wrong with any Celsius energy drinks out there. If you need to know where to pick one up, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it will tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick a Celsius energy drink up, whether that's at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, health and fitness store, or as I like to say, your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you want to get them in bulk, that's when you go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you could have it sent to your residence whenever you want. You're in control of it. Have it sent every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks. No sugar, no post-crash or jitters that you might get with a product out there. So make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. All right, if we're talking about the Bucs offense against the Eagles defense, obviously the first thing we think of is that defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, also known as the University of Georgia. What makes this group just so special up front?
Yeah, so, I mean, Jalen Carr has been incredible already through 2 games. I expected him to be this good because that's what he was doing in training camp, but I did not expect 8 pressures week 1. I did not expect him to be 3rd in the NFL in pressures after 2 weeks, but that's how good he's been. And Jordan Davis has been an excellent pass rusher as well, something he wasn't last year. And Jordan Davis talked to us all summer about being conditioned, being better fit. He knows what to expect now, and you're seeing the results early. He already has a sack and a half. I don't even think he had a sack last year. If he did, he might have one. I'm trying to remember. But obviously, Sam Reddick hasn't even gotten going yet. He's still kind of recovering from having thumb surgery, but he's still been productive, just hasn't gotten the sacks. Fletcher Cox is still good, despite being 32 years old. He's still a really good football player. Josh Sweat's been incredible. He's tied with Micah Parsons for the league leading quarterback hits, but they just roll out player after player after player and come after you. And, I think Tampa Bay's offensive line has been good the first 2 weeks, a lot better than I thought, but this is really going to be a test for him. I don't even care if you have a good offensive line. You're going to be tested, and Tristan Wirfs better be ready. And I've been feeling a lot better if they had Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs. But after watching Donovan Smith the first 2 weeks with the Chiefs, Tampa Bay might have been good just letting him go.
Yeah, I do think they made the right call there, and I think it was more financial than anything else, given the contract that he'd been given. Bucs fans are probably groaning right now hearing Donovan Smith And it was tough, too, because you move Tristan Wirfs over to the left side. And obviously, he's been fantastic at right tackle. I think he's done a very, very good job at left tackle, too. But there's always questions about the rest of that offensive line because Luke Gedeke was a second-round draft pick last season, started at guard, and it didn't work out to the point that they benched him. So they put a lot of eggs in the basket of, we're going to put a guy back in his natural position at college at right tackle and hope it works. And, oh, by the way, we're going to put another rookie at right guard and hope that he plays well. Oh, and by the way, Ryan Jensen is now going to be out for the season and his career is probably done, unfortunately. So there was a lot of change for the second year in a row for this Buccaneers offense. And I was very concerned with them picking up the blitz, which I guess when you have the Eagles pass rush, you don't have to do that as much. And as great as they've been getting after the quarterback, I mean, the Eagles and Bucs are the top two teams in stopping the run. You know, the Eagles are at 52 yards per game. The Bucs not far behind at 54. Is there any way that the Bucs can move the ball against the Eagles on the ground? Because the Bucs offense is very predicated on we have to run the ball a fair amount. I'm kind of the belief that they're going to have to throw the kitchen sink at the Eagles with a couple of different end arounds, just different motions and things of that nature, just to try to keep the Eagles off balance.
Yeah, so the Vikings tried doing this early. It did not work because the Eagles don't have the Kobe Dean. He's on IR right now.
Yeah.
He's not going to be back for a couple more weeks. So they've been really thin at off-ball linebacker. They literally signed Nicholas Morrow from the practice squad, who they cut, by the way. So they brought him back in the practice squad. They give him the green dot of all things.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He has a tremendous game. Stopping the run, in coverage. Zach Cunningham, they tried testing against the run. Zach Cunningham's been better than I thought he was ever going to be for them. He's still going to get picked apart against the pass. It's just the way it is. But against the run, I am not testing Zach Cunningham. He's still got it. Like, he still is a starting NFL linebacker. So, I mean, if the Bucs really want to run the ball, Dave Canales really wants to do that, God bless him. Because I'll tell you what I would do. I'd throw Baker Mayfield 50 times a game. I don't care. That's what I would do. I would just say, hey, you know what? We're going to throw the ball. You're going to have to stop it. We'll be one-dimensional. Yeah, we'll try running the ball, but I don't think that's the way to beat the Eagles. Again, this is where I get bugged when you look at defensive statistics sometimes. If you look at the overall numbers, the Eagles aren't good against the pass. They're not as good as they were last year statistically on defense. But teams have also been down to them early and just been throwing the ball left and right. Yeah. I want to see what happens when a team doesn't get down to them early and actually tries testing a depleted secondary. They don't have – I'll tell you what, Chris Godwin better be in the slot all night long because they don't have a slot cornerback right now. It's literally Mario Goodrich. If you're a Bucs fan and you can tell me who Mario Goodrich is, you know your stuff.
It's so funny you say that because we had a lengthy conversation on yesterday's podcast. We do the show 4 times a week. So we had a lengthy discussion yesterday. Overall, we think it's good that Chris Godwin has moved back to the outside. And he's had a very solid beginning to the season. Obviously, Mike Evans has just gone bonkers at wide receiver, especially last week's game against the Chicago Bears. But we were saying that it would be in the best interest of the Bucs for this game and this game only to, or maybe depending on the game plan for future opponents, but for this game specifically, move Chris Godwin back into the slot because he's their best yards after the catch receiver. And that's where the Bucs can kind of take advantage against the Eagles is because all the injuries in the secondary. They just put who was it? Who they put on IR? Avonte Maddox, right? Yep. Yeah, they put him on IR. So that seems like a spot where the Bucs can really take advantage of by moving Chris Godwin back in the slot. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but James Bradberry is most likely going to be back for this game. I read about potentially moving him back in the slot. Would you consider that or just keep him on the outside? Yeah,
so I think it's more matchup based what they're going to do there. Now, he was working with Eagles. Okay, so it's funny because I'm 35. I covered Westchester football. Eagles nickel coach, Ronnell Williams, was a linebacker at Westchester. He was an All-American. I covered him then. So it's very weird seeing him as an NFL coach now, 10 years later. Yeah. But he's been working with James Bradberry in the slot a little bit, and I think it's matchup based, like for Travis Kelce, for Chris Godwin, guys like that. So I think you're going to see James Bradberry in the slot. And James Bradberry was practicing today. we didn't get the official injury report yet. I'm sure we might have gotten it during this podcast. I just didn't see it yet. But he was only supposed to miss that last Thursday game. And
right.
Like if that game was Sunday, he would have played with the concussion protocol. But obviously couldn't get cleared in time. He should be good now. Reed Blankenship should be good. He's another very underrated safety for them. Guy they trust a lot. He might have the green dot on Monday night for all we know because he didn't play on Thursday. But yeah, I think you'll see a little bit of Bradbury in the slot just to kind of counter Godwin because they do like Josh Jobe, Alabama guy on the outside. Yep. But they do trust Goodrich. And I don't think Godwin's a good matchup for Goodrich, but Tampa puts someone like does Palmer play the slot by any chance?
He can. Yeah, he can. Yeah. He's played everywhere at this point. They've very much gone wide receiver 3 by committee after Russell Gage got injured when they had the joint practice. So, yeah, you'll see a little bit of Trey Palmer. You see a little bit of Devin Tompkins and Rakim Jarrett as well.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing that really hurt this team this year. And when Russell Gage got hurt, I'm like, okay, I still think they can be all right. You know, they can compete for this. Then Gage got hurt, and I'm like, well, okay, now their defense is going to have to carry them. But I think this is going to be, and again, the Eagles defense they get a lot of takeaways. They got 7 takeaways for 2 games.
Yeah.
They are definitely aggressive at getting to the football. They know how to knock it out of your hand. They're like that whole bend but don't break defense. You're going to have to get to them early because New England couldn't do it and Minnesota couldn't do it. And all of a sudden, New England's down 16-0 and Minnesota's down 27-7. And that's how I look at last Thursday's game. It's like, okay, Minnesota didn't do anything until they had to throw all the time. And they have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
And this defense does give up big plays. So, to me, the guy you got to stop is Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield going to Mike Evans. He's going deep to him 3 times, and Mike Evans has caught 2 of them. Do the math.
Yeah, I had read your article where it was you pretty much had one observation about every single team in the NFL, and for the Bucs, you highlighted the connection between Baker and Mike Evans. I know it's a little bit off topic, but obviously there was a big conversation for the Bucs about whether to give Mike Evans the extension. His agent had set the deadline the Saturday before the season. I think Mike Evans is well on his way to a big payday. Hopefully it's with the Bucs, but he's earning it so far.
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, I pay Mike Evans in a second. I mean, the guy's consistent. He finds a way to get 1,000 yards no matter what. I think he even got on the last catch of the year one time, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he made the catch and he kind of like injured his knee on the play. It was actually in 2020 when they went on to win the Super Bowl because he got it against the Falcons. He like hyperextended his knee and everyone was like, oh my God, is he going to play the next week? It's his first ever playoff game. And then essentially on 1.5 legs, he went for over 100 yards and the Bucs beat Washington and the rest is history.
So here's a funny story about the Bucs in that 2020 team. I told everybody when Brady went there, I'm going to be a closet Bucs fan because I can't stand Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick might be one of the most overrated head coaches of all time. So I'm like, please, Brady, win a Super Bowl so I can back this up. And he does it the first year. And like I love Bill Belichick as a coach. Don't get me wrong. I just think he's very arrogant. Like it's okay. I'm better than you. It's a media thing, honestly. And
sure.
And I've interviewed him before. I've gotten good answers out of him, but it is funny how he's like 15 games under 500 without Tom Brady. And then he's amazing with Tom Brady. And they always did this whole Patriot way. I'm like, is it the Patriot way or is it the Brady?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Tampa Bay proved that. I mean, look what Brady did for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's point taken. So, yeah, I was like kind of a closet Buccaneers fan in 2020 and 2021 just because I wanted to see Brady win more. And I'm not even that big of a Brady fan. I'm just like, you know what? It's a great pairing, but I ultimately thought it was Brady. And I think you're seeing the results now in New England. But also, I think the game passed Bill Belichick by. He's got a great team for 2005, but it's 2023.
It's so funny because, people used to knock the Packers for like never getting Aaron Rodgers a wide receiver and not drafting him one until Christian Watson in the second round. You could say the same thing with like Brady. Obviously, Brady and Randy Moss, everyone knew that was an insane combo. But, since then, Belichick like refuses to give wide receivers to the Patriots, or at least go out and pay for one or draft one early on. And the one that they did, it just didn't work out. So I think that hurts Mac Jones more than anything else. And you're preaching to the choir, man. I mean, I grew up a Jets fan, so it's any slander towards Bill Belichick when it's warranted. It's hard not to wins and losses are the ultimate decider. It's hard not to disagree with it. But Jeff, you've been so gracious with your time. Cannot thank you enough. Just one last question for you, or two-part question, I guess. What's the biggest matchup or anything in particular that you're looking forward to watching in this Bucs versus Eagles matchup? And give me a prediction on the game.
So I'm curious to see Evans versus Slay. I think that's who Slay's going to have. I think that's a matchup Slay wants. I got to look at the numbers from 2021. I don't think they were pretty for Darius Slay in that game. That wild card game. I know that's still in the back of a lot of those players' minds that were on that team. I mean, I remember going in that game. I'm like, okay, the Eagles are in the playoffs. I don't really care how they do. Don't embarrass yourselves. And the next thing you know, they're down 31-0, and Bucs players are laughing at Jalen Hurts on the sideline, which, by the way, that was overblown too as a former defensive player. We always laughed at offensive players. That just was caught on camera. But so I think that's a matchup I'm willing to see. If you can stop the deep ball, if you could get to Baker Mayfield, I think the Eagles win, but I wouldn't be shocked if Tampa won this game either. I really will. I think it's going to be a lot closer game than people think. I think the Eagles will find a way to get 27 points. I'll go 27-23 Eagles. I know you can call it a homer pick, whatever, but if Tampa won this game, I would not be surprised. I really wouldn't. I think they're a much better team than what people believe they are. I think they have just as much of a chance to win the NFC South as anybody. Again, if Baker doesn't turn the football over, they'll be fine.
Yeah, got to let Baker bake. I also think another very interesting matchup in this, more of a chess match, is with the coaches. So Dave Canales, obviously in his first year as offensive coordinator. Let's not forget the Eagles defensive coordinator, Sean Desai, was with the Seahawks last season. So we're talking about two guys that coach together on different sides of the ball, but obviously familiar with the style of offense that Canales likes to run. So I'm curious to see what elements he keeps with that offense, what he changes up because he's going against a guy that is familiar with his system. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great coaching matchup. I think the coaches are going to have to kind of decide this for the Bucs if they can outcoach the Eagles in that one, which is obviously very difficult. And Baker can't turn the football over, and they have to win in the trenches. I mean, it's a little cliche to say, but it really is the truth. They have to hold up their end of the bargain. So I think it's going to be a really exciting game, a prove-it game for the Bucs specifically with all the doubters. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining the show. One last time, just tell everybody where they can find all of your work and where they can follow you on social media.
So you can find me at Jeff Kerr CBS on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Jeff Kerr CBS on Instagram. Just go to cbssports.com. You'll find one of my articles on there. I actually wrote about today the 0-2 teams, did kind of like a panic meter form, but I didn't do teams specifically. I kind of did players. I kind of did, coaches, obviously what the Chicago Bears, but I will say this too. I love how you simplified the game instead of trenches, because I think people try to confuse football way too much and try to be too analytical with it. It really is a simple game. You win the trenches, you're going to win football games. And that's why Tampa made the playoffs last year at 8-9. They were good on the defensive line. They were good on defense. And if someone asked me, name your top 10 off seasons, the Bucs would be in there just because I know they lost Brady, but they could have done much worse at quarterback than what they did with Baker Mayfield. They were able to get him. They kept Lavonte David. I did not think they were keeping. Yeah, I didn't think they were keeping Jamel Dean at all. No,
I didn't either.
I was like, he's gone. And all of a sudden he comes back. I'm like, all right, this is a good offseason for him. You can't fix everything in one offseason, but
exactly.
But they did the best job they could. And I love ripping the NFC South because of someone who covers a lot of NFC South games for some apparent reason. I think people like to see me miserable at CBS. So whenever I cover the Falcons, whenever I'm covering the Panthers, I'm like, God, these teams suck. I'm like, I was telling people, I don't want to hear about how good the Saints are this year because no one in that division's good. So I'm hoping we're seeing another Bucs-Saints rivalry just for the heck of it. Look, the Falcons are 2-0. Yeah. And I think Desmond Ridder hasn't been good, but they're much better on defense. Bijan Robinson is the truth. And Arthur Smith's been called. He's called 2 good games. So maybe the NFC South's going to be better than I think it's going to be. Carolina's worse than I thought they were going to be. And, the Saints are, they're 2-0. They're like Tampa. So it's going to be a really fun division this year. I'm kind of excited for it. I'm just tired of hearing about the Dallas Cowboys beating teams without a pulse.
That's a very good point. I mean, the Cowboys have dominated. Obviously, the Giants look terrible. They look terrible against the Cardinals too, despite a crazy second half comeback. And the Jets are a completely different team without Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, you're absolutely right about the NFC South. I mean, it's at least going to be competitive, whether all the teams end up 8-9 or all the teams end up 10-7. You're at least going to have it go down to the wire. I mean, there's already 3 teams that are 2-0. And to your point about Baker, I mean, they got him for $4 million. And you look at the contract that the Saints paid Derek Carr, and the Bucs are looking pretty good through 2 games. Just that contract alone with Baker. But Jeff, can't thank you enough. It's been so great talking to you, and would love to have you on again at some point down the road. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, you guys do a great job. Everybody does a great job covering Tampa down there. It's one of those teams where when I'm looking at the black book for the NFL beat writers, it's like it's not a big beat, but they definitely care down there, and that's one thing I like to see. It's Tampa. They do like their football in Florida, regardless of what people tell you.
Absolutely true. Sometimes it's a little more college football, but there's obviously a lot of love for the NFL as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports. Jeff, thank you so much again.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take it easy. All right, let's hear from our friends at Immuni Financial.
At Immuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah. We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Immuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Immuni Financial, proudly serving clients across the country since 1980. They have so many different services to help you out with, whether it's advisory or brokerage services, investment banking, insurance services, sales and tradings. And of course, if you want to start a college savings account, if you have a child going to college eventually, you can do that as well with Immuni Financial. They have places all across the country. It's not just in Colorado. So you could be in Tampa or Philly or anywhere else and get them done. You can even be in Oklahoma if you're a Baker Mayfield fan. So check out Immuni Financial. Give them a call. Get a free consultation. Can't hurt by giving them a call over at Immuni Financial. But big thanks again to Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports for joining the show today. We do have a couple of super chats to get to. I have not forgotten about you guys. I know I love the Pewter people. This will kind of be a Q&A session for the next couple of minutes, whatever. So if you got questions, feel free to fire away about this game. We'll start with Q's44. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Q's44, who said, do we know more of Chase Edmonds' status? Tuck can't pass block. We would take him out when Schrader had to pass. I think you're talking about Syracuse again. Chase Edmonds has went on injured reserve with a knee injury. So he's going to be out for at least the next 4 games. So Keyshawn Vaughn obviously is on the active roster. And if the Bucs need to bring in another running back, they do have Patrick Laird on the practice squad. So that'll be interesting with Sean Tucker pass blocking. We kind of talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show. If you can't pass block, you're not really going to see the field. Doesn't matter what offense that you're in. The key, though, is obviously Rachaad White can't play 100% of the snaps. He is going to play a fair amount. But you can't have Sean Tucker in the game and then all of a sudden the Eagles know that it's a running down. That just can't be the case. So definitely something to keep in mind. Tucker's still going to be RB2. That isn't changing anytime soon unless he plays insane and becomes RB1. But I don't foresee that happening, at least for quite a while, probably not even this season. Sean Tucker pass blocking is definitely going to be a storyline moving forward. We have a super chat as well from Zachary Jarvis. Thank you so much, Zach, for the $1.99 super chat. As Zachary says, seen an update for Davis, but not for Cansey. Any word? Cansey did not practice today. We were out at the Bucs facility. He came out later on in his jersey, but wasn't warming up with the team, didn't have shoulder pads on or a helmet or anything like that. We'll see if he practices tomorrow. We got to remember in week 1, when the Bucs played on Sunday, he didn't practice until Thursday and just did Thursday, Friday, and then played in the game. But then that calf injury obviously came back to hurt him literally and physically. So there is a chance that Carlton Davis plays this week. I will say, in the locker room after practice, when we got to talk to the players and things of that nature, he seemed in pretty good spirits. He seemed pretty relaxed and ready to go. So didn't look like a guy that was worried about whether or not he's going to play this week, which definitely is a step in the right direction. So we'll see with Carlton Davis. The injury report should be coming out relatively soon. I'm surprised it hasn't come out yet. Maybe I missed it while we were on the show, but typically it's out right around this time. Todd Bowles did say that he is questionable, or that he was limited in practice today. I have some video, but obviously I want to speak a lot with Jeff Kerr, and by the time I got home, I can only put so much video together. So we did speak to Baker Mayfield as well today. A lot of discussion about third down efficiency. What I'll do is maybe I'll put it in StreamYard, so when we do the Pewter Game Day show, we can play some of those videos. By the way, the Pewter Game Day show is coming up on Monday. It is presented by Celsius. Very excited for another edition of the Pewter Game Day show. We'll start at 6:15. Remember, it's an earlier kickoff because there's 2 Monday night games because the Bengals play against the Rams. So Bailey Adams is going to be hosting the Pewter Game Day show. I'll actually be at Raymond James Stadium with Scott Reynolds and Adam Slavon for the game. So it'll start at 6:15. It's just an hour pregame show. We'll obviously get into all the matchups, the injury reports, anything else that everybody wants to talk about, which, of course, if you super chat us, we will make sure we get to your question right away. And then the live in-game analysis, reactions, all of that fun stuff. That starts at kickoff at 7:15. Bailey will be on. I'm sure we'll kind of switch a couple of guys in and out during the show as well. By the way, on our YouTube channel, did a cut-up of all the biggest moments from the last Pewter Game Day show, which was myself and Josh Capo. So you'll see my reaction to the Shaq Barrett pick 6, which also led to the over. The Mike Evans touchdown, some other big plays that went on in the game. So definitely check out that video, the highlights. We'll also have Pewter picks and props coming up at some point tomorrow with my picks. Of course, that is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the pick'ems and how to go with it, let me pull up this video and we'll get it rocking. Yeah, so Underdog Fantasy, it's a single-player fantasy game based on the player stats. You got to pick at least 2 players, and you pick the higher or lower on their stats, whether it's passing yards, rushing yards, touchdown, fantasy points, all that stuff. Obviously, the more you choose, the higher the odds you get. So if you bet 6 times, you're going to win a lot more money than if you just bet, 4 players, whatever. The insurance is big as well, too, because if you pick 7 picks, but not all of them hit, you won't win any money. But say you pick 7 and, 5 of them hit, with that insurance, you'll still walk away with some money. So check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code Pewter, that's PEWTER, and get a deposit bonus with Underdog Fantasy. Again, Pewter picks and props coming up tomorrow. On Friday, I pick the spread and the over-under in the Bucs game, which I'm 4-0 right now. I had Bucs plus 6.5. I had the over-under 45.5 week 1 against the Vikings. And then I had Bucs minus 3 and the over 40.5 in week 2 against the Bears. So I'm 4-0. I'll be picking those as well for this week, along with a couple of other player props as well, which I was 2-0 on my player props last week with the over and passing yards for Baker Mayfield and Justin Fields. So I'm 4-1 on my Pewter props this season. So you can bet them individually, or you can do it on Underdog Fantasy as well, your choice. And then with my NFL picks, I make a couple of picks around the league. That one, if I'm not mistaken, I am 10-5-1. So off to a great start with my NFL picks as well. That includes the Bucs picks. So check out Pewter Picks and Props coming up next week or tomorrow. I'm all over the place here. Coming up tomorrow, We do have a couple super chats to get to right now, starting with Meets McGee, who said, thank you for the $5 super chat. Meets McGee says, neither team will run well. The yards per carry will be high because of Hurts scrambles and the Bucs running wide zone. Well, just because you do a zone blocking scheme doesn't mean that you can't run it far. I mean, Chase Edmonds had a great run for about 14 yards on a straight up just zone block to the right side. So I do. And will Jalen Hurts scramble? Yeah, absolutely. But the Bucs did a great job containing Justin Fields. They can contain Jalen Hurts. You heard Jeff Kerr say it as well, that Hurts hasn't had the running lanes that he had last season. So the Bucs will obviously try to duplicate that game plan and keep him in the pocket. Now he's got a lot more dangerous weapons with Brown and Smith, A.J. Brown and Lavonte Smith. So just because you keep him in the pocket doesn't necessarily mean that you're still going to win the game. But you can keep the rushing yards down on both sides. Meets McGee, thank you for that super chat. Also, a huge thank you to John Spilio for the $10 super chat. Thank you very much, John, who says, just call me Spilio, which we will. For me, this is my favorite fun team in a long time to root for. Do you think it's because of Mayfield and the rest of the underdog talk around the league? Keep up the great work. Spilio, thank you so much for the super chat and for the comment. So Baker is very polarizing. And if you love Baker, then you're loving what you see right now. But there are a lot of people that dislike Baker, especially Texas Longhorn fans. So, but I do think there is something to be said about the underdog mentality. I mean, there's so many people, not Bucs fans, but so many people that have doubted the Bucs, that said that they're going to have the number one pick this year. They're going to be a bottom 5 team in the league. And bam, they go out and beat the Minnesota Vikings. And I know the Vikings are 0-2 right now, but also they just played the Eagles. So people can't be sleeping on the Bucs that much anymore, especially if they beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday. But even if they lose to the Eagles, if they come back and beat the Saints the following week going into the bye and you're 3-1, that's still, a huge, huge, huge thumbs up for the Bucs, 2 thumbs up, and a great start for that team. So, yeah, I just think having the success and doubting people wrong has made it a lot of fun. I think there's also a lot of mystery around this team, given that Dave Canales is a first-time offensive play caller, the fact that the offensive line is new with some new players, that the wide receivers outside of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you got some new and young pieces as well. Couple undrafted free agents doing things. So, yeah, there's a lot of excitement to it. And sometimes when you get in the same routine of the same players over and over again, you have more fun when there are different groups or different players involved. So I think that would explain a fair amount of it for sure. Let's get into a couple. Bat W wants to know, Matt, where's the hat? I didn't wear a hat today. Did some TV for WFLA. You could see me on their show on Sunday at some point. I'm not sure at what time, but if you want to see me back on TV on WFLA, you can check that out coming up on Sunday. Had a great conversation with Dan Lucas of WFLA News Channel 8 about this Bucs-Eagles game. So you can check that out. What was the other hashtag? Hashtag Matt Hat. Well, you guys tell me. If you want me to put the hat back on for future shows, I absolutely will do so. But I was running around all over the place between being at the Bucs facility, being at practice, and then doing the show. So that's why no hat today. By the way, again, I apologize. I couldn't get to all of the videos I wanted to post from the practice facility today and speaking to Coach Bowles and Baker Mayfield. But check out our YouTube channel. I'll post some of the stuff there so you could see all the things from the press conference today. One of the videos I do have is something that we talked about on yesterday's show. Is the Eagles have popularized the QB sneak and executing on short yardage downs. With the QB sneak, Jalen Hurts gets pushed by the 2 running backs behind him. So I asked Todd Bowles, how do you stop it? Is there a way to stop it? And this was his response.
Polarized how they do their QB sneak in short yardage situations with the running backs kind of pushing Hurts. How do you stop that, and how difficult is it to stop that?
the answer to that, I'd probably be writing a book. They're like 98% on it, and you know it's coming. They know they're giving it to you, and they get a great push. They got an athletic quarterback. They got a big line, and I don't think anybody stopped it yet. So, we'll try like everybody else and see which side of the fence we fall on.
Do you think that should be allowed moving forward?
I mean, I don't make the rules. I'm not the commissioner or anybody else. And we got to stop it. The play is legal. We got to stop it as a defense. And they do a good job of executing it as an offense.
Todd Bowles, a little comedy there, saying that he would write a book if he knew how to stop it. So, yeah, going to be a super fun matchup coming up on Monday night. Primetime between the Bucs and the Eagles. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media. We are on X, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe to Pewter Report TV. We got a lot of great content out. We also just recently reached 12,000 followers. I know it's the old Bucs quarterback, but we cannot thank you guys enough for helping us reach that number, 12,000. You guys make it so much fun every single time. Great in the chats, the comments, all of that fun stuff. So can't thank you guys enough for 12,000 followers. And yeah, let's keep it going. So then we can put Mike Evans back on the screen for that 13,000. But yeah, follow us on our social media. We got tons of stuff, especially on our Instagram and our YouTube. Please like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Yeah, give us that thumbs up. That would be awesome. Before we end the show, we do have another super chat who's, I think, is talking about some betting here. John Mimalt, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but thank you for the $5 super chat, who says, risking $1 to win $1.54. Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens, Seattle Seahawks, Kansas City Chiefs, giving their odds as well. So the Dolphins are minus 305. So you're doing all money line, I'm guessing. Ravens minus 418, Seahawks minus 271, Kansas City Chiefs minus 784. Not great odds, but I mean, you're betting $1 anyway. Not that it matters. There's no bet shaming with the amount that you bet on. So those are your picks. Again, you can check out my picks on Pewter Picks and Props, which will be coming out tomorrow on Friday. But thank you very much for that super chat, John Mimalt. And one last time, as a reminder to everybody, we got the Pewter Game Day show coming up on Monday, being hosted by Bailey Adams. The pregame show will start at 6:15. And then the live in-game analysis, everything like that, comes out at 7:15. That will take you through the entire game. It's been awesome the first 2 weeks. Going to be just as much. Going to be really fun again for Monday night's game in prime time. Very excited. We'll see if the Bucs can make a statement, gain some respect from the rest of the national media with a big-time performance against the defending NFC champion. So we'll see how Tampa Bay can do. Huge game for the Bucs, but that's going to do it for me on this show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, in the chats, in the comments, the super chats were great again. Appreciate you guys so much. Thanks to Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports for joining the show today. But until Monday, enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on Monday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Have a great weekend. Peace out.